call the meeting to order. If everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Banco, could we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Britton? Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Deschaux? Mr. DeLauder?
Here.
Mr. Eifert? Mr. Emick?
Here.
Mrs. Herman?
Here.
Mrs. Mealy?
Here.
Mr. Rawhauser?
Here.
7 members present, 6 members present, sorry.
All right, thank you. We're going to start off our communications section with Chief Mark Bensel and Officer Allen of Northern Regional Police Department.
Thanks for moving us on the agenda. Appreciate it. We're going to start out. We're going to let Mark Allen give an overview of what he does each day. I think one of the reasons we're here tonight is our contract, which is a 2-year contract, expires the end of the calendar year. Our year runs different than your year. So the new contract would run for the duration of 2018, 2019. Am I correct?
Yes, it expires January 31st of 2018.
Okay,
So-
you're correct. We did start 1 month.
Yes.
Right. So we'll let Mark start.
I do have numbers if anybody wants numbers, but I don't think that that's why you wanted me here. I know that some of the board doesn't really know what I do on a daily basis. No 2 days are really alike in this environment. I can tell you some of the things that I do on a regular basis. I will say that I do approximately 2 to 3 hours of foot patrol each day. That most of the time is involved with either at the front doors when the kids are getting there, or the rear parking lot, or if we have some trouble spots, for example, a cafeteria or something like that, they might ask me, hey, could you be a little more present in a certain location because of some issues. And then also almost 2 hours usually a day during the lunch periods. For the most part, I am down at the lunchroom because we feel that that's important, because there's anywhere between 250 and 350 kids at a time in the auditorium, in the cafeteria. So I spend a lot of time there. And then from that, nothing's typical. I don't really know how to explain that. The administrators in here are all probably laughing. They know. I deal with anything from, it seems like this year I've done a lot of counseling. I think I need to go back to school to get my counseling certificate, because I deal with a lot of marital problems, but not really marital problems. But it seems like I've developed a rapport with the students that they now come to me to ask me some questions. But anywhere from like relationship type issues to legal questions. You'd be surprised at how many kids saying, Officer Allen, I got a ticket last night. What do you think I should do? Or what do I have to do? There's people see the patrol car parked in the parking lot, believe it or not. People stop in because they're looking for a police officer. So sometimes I'm dealing with stuff that isn't even really school related, but it's usually borough related. There are days where I'm handling school bus pass violations. In the past, what had happened was when a school bus driver has a violation and they file a report, it gets sent to our station. But now, being in the position that I am, anything that happens in Dover with regards to the school bus violations, they come through me because I have a rapport with E&B Transportation and all that kind of stuff. So There is no such thing as a typical day. There are things that I do regularly on a regular basis. I've changed tires in the parking lot for visitors. I've dealt with fights. I've dealt with drugs. I've dealt with weapons. And if you want, like I said, I have the numbers here. I don't want to bore you. I can give you a comparison of from year to year what we dealt with or what I dealt with.
Why don't you look over those
Okay.
for a minute? I know Mark's being pretty modest. He does a lot of things, but from the law enforcement's perspective, and I think this is a good way for you folks to look at it too, there's a couple things he touched on that are really important to me. Number one, you folks are getting an immediate response to issues, whatever the issues are, whether they're big issues, small issues, you're getting an immediate response. You have someone there who is available to be an advisor, a listener, as he said, a counselor, whatever he needs to be, he can try to fill those shoes. But most importantly, what you get is you get a person there who is familiar with students and their families. He knows a lot of these kids by name. They know him, because they're seeing him now every day for, now we're going on 2 years. So those things really become important. Of course, he does educational programs, and he was very instrumental in helping to plan the school drill that we had at North Salem Elementary, which was very successful. But he's also a direct liaison with school issues back to the police department. It's not uncommon for Mark to call back to the department maybe once a day, twice a day, maybe once a week to say, listen, this is going on or that's going on. Let other patrol officers know this. This is something that may become an issue after hours when school is closed. So we really have, we kind of have our thumb on the pulse of what's going on within the school. And the relationships that he's building, I'm just going to give you an example. This is a real life example, and Mark Allen is part of this. I don't know, Mark, you might be able to tell me how many years ago you started out at Spring Grove, roughly?
9.5 years.
All right, we've been out at Spring Grove School District for, say, 9 years. The most gratifying thing about us having a school resource officer out at Spring Grove, and Mark was our first out there, and now, of course, he's Dover's first. There's probably a dozen students that are graduates from Spring Grove High School who are currently police officers. And that makes me, that's my home area, my home school. That makes me really proud because they, I believe, are seeing something that they're looking up to, they respect, and they say, you know what, I think I'd like to be a part of that. Some of them work for us, others work for other police departments. There's about a dozen. And my hopes really are that we start to see that trend at Dover as well, because there's nothing better for a community than to have people within the community policing. It's very important. They can do a great job. And as I said, I just don't know how to give Mark enough credit. He started that many years ago and did a fantastic job. So that's my hope for Dover. The other thing I wanted to say is this. Although you have Mark Allen, you get him every day, and I was explaining a little earlier to someone, you get your school resource officer 180 days a year, roughly, 8 hours a day. That's 1,440 hours during the school year that you have a police officer on campus at one of your buildings. The other thing that you're getting with the contract that we have is you're getting police officers to go to your football games, and they are not, you folks are not paying them overtime. That's all straight time, all part of the contracted hours that you're purchasing, because you're purchasing more than 1,440 hours. you're buying, in our language, 3 units, which equals 1,560 hours annually. So we fill that additional 120 hours for anything else that the school needs, including educational programs. I know we had our go-kart, which we call Sydney. We had that over at the high school, and I don't know how many guys we had over. It takes several, 4. So we had 4 guys there. You folks are not paying for any of that additional manpower. You're not paying to have 2 police officers at your Friday night football games. You're not paying to have people at, I mean, you are paying, you're not paying above and beyond the contract. Let me make that clear. You know, at your basketball games, wrestling matches and things like that. So I see that as a good thing. The other thing that I wanted to point out is we're telling you about all the things that we do through our contract and through our school resource officer. I want you to know this as well, because I feel this is very, very important. Just because we have a school resource officer at Dover School District and we also have one at Spring Grove School District does not mean we have 52 police officers. That does not mean the other 51 have no clue what's going on here, because that would be a recipe for extreme failure during some critical incident. Our police officers, and I told the superintendent this the other day, ever since the Sandy Hook incident, which again, I'm not good with time, Sandy Hook happened a while ago. We started walking your schools. We service 5 school districts. We have about 23 school buildings between Dover School District, Northeastern, Northern, Spring Grove, Christian School of York, St. Rosa, Lima. I don't know, did I miss any?
No.
Central. We have buildings in Central. We've committed since Sandy Hook to walking every building in our jurisdiction every day. And our police officers do that. So just because Mark Allen is on campus at Dover, you are still getting another police officer who's walking your buildings every day. The reason we do that is to maintain familiarity with obviously people, layouts of buildings, and it's just generally a good thing to increase their knowledge. Every police officer on staff to have increased knowledge in the event that we have a critical action. So I just want to point that out because it's a big commitment, but I think it's very, very important. We never lose sight of what's important for any of our districts and the safety of the personnel working there and the students by having a school resource officer there. The rest of the police department is very much committed to staying in touch with the district, its people, and its activities for all of us and not just one person. Either of us will be happy to answer questions, and we're both Mark, so you can't miss.
Just say chief if you want.
I do have to make a comment.
Is it good or bad?
Oh, no, it's a good one.
Okay, go ahead.
On the comment you made about Northern Regional is in the different schools. I'm a bus driver for Central. I get to Round Town, and I do see your police officer when I pull in the morning, he's there. So I can verify that that is one school that they do get to.
I appreciate that. And, you know, Mark and I had said this before, so we could talk for, you know, being a cop, you got to be a great talker, so I could just go on and on and on. I'll tell you how we learned this lesson. We learned this lesson through the first school drill that was done in York County, and it was done at Central High School, which is Springettsbury, and I don't think they'd be upset me telling the story. They have an SRO. When all the police officers from other agencies are going into that school for this drill, they're married up with another Springettsbury cop. Why? You assume the Springettsbury cops know the school. Well, guess what? They had an SRO, and we were doing the same thing at Spring Grove. They had an SRO, but they didn't ask their police officers to go in the building. Why? Why do we need to go there? I have an SRO. Which for us would be, okay, I got one guy who knows every nook and cranny of the school. The other 51 of us, we don't know a stinking thing. Well, that is crazy. We learned that at that drill, and of course, after Sandy Hook, we self-corrected. So you folks should see our people in your schools, and my hope is on a daily basis or almost every day, I'm hoping for every day. They enter using your key cards, which we've been provided. Every cop has a key card. And we need them using those, using different doors, being familiar with your buildings, and being ready and prepared, for something ugly that could happen. So,
And I want to just, I've known Officer Allen for a couple years. Yeah, 50-some years. And I get to go into the high school a lot, and when I have the opportunity, I try and get in and talk to him. And I got to tell you, a lot of times I can't get in and talk to him because there's a student in there talking to him. And sometimes when you kind of outside the door and the door's open, you just kind of eavesdrop a little bit. And it is. I mean, it's talking about their day, and it's really nice to see that they have that comfort level that they can go up and talk to a police officer. And the other biggest thing for me too is again at the football games when he's there, you see these younger students, elementary age, intermediate school age students coming up to him and interacting with him. And again, just having that comfort level to come up to a police officer and talk to him, I think is just from a PR sense, and that building that respect and the willingness to go up and talk to them, I think is a tremendous benefit to our community and our schools. So.
But I agree with you very much. But it takes the right person too, and that's where you deserve a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
You're right.
Now, is he designated for the high school only, or does he get to the other schools as well?
He's in the other schools as well.
I do them all.
Yes.
That's them, they do them all.
Just checking.
I'd like to thank them both for their service. It's been A+ customer service on behalf of the administration. I thank you every day.
Give me 5 stars on the Facebook.
Officer Allen, I have a question for you. I'm just curious where you get called into the disciplinary situations that arise. At what level, at what point does that look like? I'm sure not everything is
Not
passed
everything.
along, but
I don't want to say, majority of the time, it would be considered criminal, for example, fighting or something like that. But it depends on the age. It depends on the circumstances behind it. Usually, at the elementary and even intermediate level, I might just be called by the administrator to say, hey, I'm having this issue with this kid. He was involved in a dispute in the cafeteria. It could be considered criminal. We don't want to go that route, but I would like you to be there when we talk to him so that he gets the impression that this is serious. It's a lot of that, especially at the younger age groups. But normally, I shouldn't even say normally, because there are things that I do to assist, especially at the high school, with hey, we're having some students that are having an issue. They're not really criminal, but we have 5 students we need to talk to. Could you talk to Johnny for us while we speak to Mary, Jim, and I explain to the kids, hey, I look at me as the dean of students right now. I'm not in the role of a police officer. You're not in trouble, but the school wants to know what happened so that I can provide that to Miss Shelley or Mr. Lugar or Mr. Wassler. But it varies but if it's criminal, they get me involved. I am pulled into a lot just for this factor, the presence factor, saying, oh crap, the police officer's here, it's serious. A lot of times I don't even have to add anything, just by being there, they say, oh, I've got this time.
And we'll get heads up about things. So we'll get heads up about things at night or during the day, and I have no doubt that he has headed off things and prevented things from happening, because we've gotten a heads up from a parent, another child, and he answers his phone all the time. So we are calling and texting and he's always, weekends, everything. It's amazing, but I am convinced that there have been a number of things that did not occur because Mark checked it out first.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, did we call you the night of the crash over there?
Yeah, we were.
Oh, yeah,
So
we
we
were all
had a
together.
call,
I think we were all.
We were all
We
together.
were all here.
that was a little bit of a blurry night, but I know I figured we reached out to him, and then we know that we can move on with what we need to do, and he can begin to take care of things over here. Just to give you an idea on the number of calls, and these are not all serious calls. Some are, if there's an educational program that's provided, that counts as an incident for us as well, because we write a report, that way we can track it. 2015, all schools combined, Mark handled 449 incidents, 2016, 454, and year-to-date in 17, 332. So I would assume we won't catch up in the 400s by the end of the year. But again, that doesn't mean they're all bad things. I think when a school resource officer goes, when you put a new school resource officer into a school, you'll see the numbers for 2-3 years. Take some time to start to level out to where you're really going to be, because there's a learning curve on how do we use the school resource officer, when do we use them, what does he write an incident report on, what doesn't he write an incident report. So I'd say, now that's 14, yeah, okay. I'd say we're going to be, have a pretty good idea probably coming out of 17 and 18. But the other thing I would say is, in the beginning, it's very common to have the school resource officer probably spend 65 or 70% of their time in the first year or two dealing with what, let's just call them negative issues, and maybe 30% of their time dealing with something positive, education. Our hope is always that as time moves on, we move more towards 50-50 or even in the other direction. And I'd say we're probably there now, somewhere in that 50-50 mark, where 50% of his time is being spent for, say, positive things and 50% negative.
So I have a question. So we have a contract with the regional police.
Yes.
Who provide Officer Allen with us. But then the other police officers that you see entering the building and just doing the walk around, checking doors and things. Now, is that just a courtesy call or is that contractual?
No,
That's not contractual, it's just, a mandate that we put in place as an agency.
From
So
the township, borough, that's being billed to the township or borough, wherever it may be.
Okay.
Whether it's Paradise Jackson, Dover, it may be.
we're funded by our 8 municipalities, and then we receive additional funding through Dover Area School District and Spring Grove Area School District. That funding specifically is directed towards the school resource officer and then those additional events that we were talking about. Everything else is funded through the municipalities.
Okay.
I have a comment, it's my personal opinion, and that's you're entitled to. I think both Marks are doing an outstanding job in the area, the chief and the resource officer, compared to what we've had already as a chief. And Mark does an outstanding job every now and then. When he sees me coming to high school, he says, wait, I gotta get my cuffs out.
Lock the door.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions for either of them? Thank you, gentlemen, for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting us on top.
No problem.
Top to bottom.
Just keep being there.
All right, next item on the agenda was to be a Navigate presentation by Mr. Nelson. But seeing that we are missing 3 board members, we felt that it was important for them to take a look at this presentation. So we're going to back that up until the January meeting in the hopes that everybody will be here for that one. With that said, we're going to move on to our data presentation by Mrs. Kroon.
All right. Okay, ready, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so our data, our state data is in and we're finalized. We are missing some pieces of data. Once we get that in, for example, we don't have the SATs yet for last year. I will populate that and then I'm going to post this on the district website so people can check it out. Okay, you can just slide through, there we go. So the first thing, what I want to remind you a little bit about our data, we look at two pieces of data. The first is the one data you are very familiar with. It's been around forever, and it's our achievement data. And in the state of Pennsylvania, we identify our achievement data as advanced, proficient, basic, or below basic. That's a cut score. Students either make the cut or they don't make the cut. A lot of things go in to affect a student's achievement data. If they're a learning support student or a special education student, that can affect their achievement data. If they are economically disadvantaged, that can affect their achievement data. Being an English language learner can affect achievement data because, again, the cut score is very static, and it's the same for every child in that grade level. But the other piece of data we look at, on the next one, is growth data. And this data is much more important to us, and as of right now, holds about the same weight as the achievement data, but things are going to change probably in the next year in which this PVAST growth data is going to be given a lot more weight. This data looks at each individual child from where they enter each school year to where they end each school year. So whether a child is learning support or whether a child is an English language learner, they are expected to make a certain amount of growth during that school year because their starting point is different. Every child is different. So that variable is very much dependent on the teacher in the class. That variable is dependent on the teaching strategies, the culture of the building, the culture of the class, just different ways the teacher teaches, the curriculum. All of those things add to the growth of a student. So those are the two pieces of data we're going to talk about tonight. So first, again, is the achievement data you see every year. This is grades 3 to 8 PSSAs for last year. This is our percent proficient and advanced in math, language, arts, and science. What you see under grade is the grade level of course and the number of students in that grade. The percent proficient this last year, the red in parentheses is the state average. And then if it's NA, the kids don't have a test that year. And you'll see that in some instances we're higher than the state average, some we're not. But that just again, so these are achievement results. When we get these results, they tell us some things. They don't give us, this doesn't give us a whole lot of information. Our growth data is much more important to us. But this does kind of give, this is a comparison of how many kids were proficient in the state in PSSAs. This comparison is a comparison between last year's PSSAs in math, language, arts, and science and the year before. And in red is if they went up, went down, anywhere. If you're -3 to +3, it's really it's really not statistically significant. When we see a 6% increase, we like that. That's good. A 10% increase, that's great. So those are our scores up through 8th grade. Again, our achievement scores. But now we're going to look at our growth scores. And again, this is much more important to us because, again, students, this is where students enter the class that year to where they leave. And if you look at the bottom, we love dark blue and light blue. That tells us that there is significant evidence that students made a year's worth of growth more than a year's worth of growth. And that's very, very important to us. Green means they did make a year's worth of growth, but one of the things, if you remember, you saw that those achievement scores up above, when we are only at 50, 60% proficient, we have a lot of students who need to make more than a year's worth of growth so we can make up that gap. That's really important to us. So the blues and the dark blues are very important. Again, green is okay. Yellow is kind of trending in the wrong direction, and we definitely don't want to see red. What this tells us, this is math, and what is good about this, and all of the elementary buildings are there, and the intermediate school is there. If you look at the different elementary buildings, and every single building has an area that has the blues, and that as we're moving into curriculum and we're talking about instructional strategies that the teachers need to learn, that's what we look for. We look for what teachers are getting it done. Okay, the next one is language arts. Same kind of thing. We like blue and dark blue and light blue. We love dark blue. And green is okay. Yellow is trending the wrong direction, and again, as red is where we need to work. All right, and then our science. So those are our PSSAs. Keystones follow the same kind of pattern. An achievement there is a cut score, and either the student is proficient or they're not. All students are compared to the same number. So again, we have the same kinds of things with achievement. The first chart is 7th and 8th grade. Only a few students each year take Algebra 1, and this is an end of course exam. It is currently not a graduation requirement, but will probably be returning in a couple years as a graduation requirement. The federal government requires us to assess all grade levels, including at the high school. If you look down below, though, at the grade 11 accountability, which is the high school, that is very different because that doesn't really go by grade level. Students can take a Keystone in whichever grade they're taking the course. So in algebra, we have 7th graders who take it, 8th graders, 9th, 10th graders. So the federal government requires that we report this to the federal government when they are in 11th grade. So we look at them in 11th grade. So you'll see the class of 2018, that's reported from last year when they took it. High school literature can be taken in 9th grade or 10th grade, and high school biology the same. So again, we have proficiency in the red is the state average, and that kind of gives you an idea of where we are at this point. And again, we have growth. We have PVAS growth. Same thing, we like dark and light blue. We don't like red, and we do know we have some work to do there. And in a few minutes, we're going to talk about the work we're doing. This is just some additional information for you, just for your information. This information is important to us because we want to analyze it. What is really good here is the course enrollment. This year, current year, we have 363 students are sitting in seats in AP courses. That's excellent. We do want that. That's good for them. We don't know yet, of course, how many are taking exams. But if you go back to last year, 242 students, only 69 students took the AP exam. That is something we're going to work on. Only 28.5% took the exam. That is something we need to talk about. We want to talk about the curriculum. In a few minutes, I'm going to talk to you about what we're doing with that. And we have about a 50% pass rate. We need to improve that, and we know we do. Underneath that, I just have there, we have 6 AP scholars. Those were the students we met a couple weeks ago. We brought them here to the board. The SAT summary, I couldn't give you a comparison because we don't have it yet. We get it sometime soon, I assume. Once we do, I'll populate that and I'll put that on the website. And we do have a few students who do take the ACT. That is, it's a little different than the SAT, but colleges west of us, toward Pittsburgh and west, tend to ask for the ACT more than the East Coast colleges. So we do have a couple students who took that. And then every year we share the NOCD scores. We're always pleased with them. Last year we had a 77% passage rate. That's excellent. So that's good. And again, we still want to keep improving our NOCD because those are just excellent. They're just a good reflection of our classes. Okay, last week in the paper, and I sent this to you, I sent you a PowerPoint last week. The school performance profile was published in one of the papers. And the school performance profile, we might not be talking about it next year. It might not be around. They keep saying it's not going to be around, but it keeps coming back, so we're not sure when it's going to go away. But what the school performance profile is, it's developed by PA Education, and really the primary purpose of the school performance profile is to create a score to be put into the teacher evaluation system. So if you just slide down a little bit, and this kind of weirdly came out when I put this in the Google Doc. But a teacher's evaluation is based on 3 different pieces. Half of their evaluation is based on our observation when we go in and observe them. Then 35% is based on a goal that they set that is based on data, and 15% is based on a building level score, and that is the SPP. The SPP, every single teacher in that building gets that SPP, whether they're an art teacher, music teacher, everybody shares in that score. So right now that SPP is an important score because it does affect a teacher evaluation, and that is its primary purpose right now. These were the scores. If you look at the SPPs, we have the 2015-16 and the 2016-17. So these were the SPPs for last year. And I sent you the PowerPoint just to kind of give you an idea of what goes into the SPP. Those achievement scores I shared earlier go into the SPP. Those growth scores I shared earlier go into the SPP. At the high school level, there's additional data. Graduation rate is in there. At the lower schools, attendance is included as well. Also, we receive extra credit for the number of students advanced on the test. And there are other extra credit points we can get for NOCD, how many students take the PSAT, so that all goes into the score. One thing I want to share with you about Dover High School is we talked about PIMS. I think we talked about PIMS the other night. And in the PIMS is where all our data is, all our test data is, all our attendance data is. Last year, we learned that our graduation rate was wrong. It was uploaded wrong because of some data pieces we were doing wrong at the elementary level. We were actually had tagged kids who moved out of the district. They could have moved out 5-6 years ago. They were still being recorded in our system. So the system identified that we were missing all these kids that moved, and they were still counted in our graduation rate. So our graduation rate came out as 70%. We have written PDE. We have asked them to change the SPP. We don't think they're going to. It is our mistake. However, I did hear back from the Assistant Secretary of Education. They are looking into it. At this point, really, all I would like is a confirmation that the data was wrong because our graduation rate is over 88%. So that did affect the high school. And I can promise you we do have that fixed. It will not happen again. So we've shared this data. We've talked a lot about data. We've talked a lot about needing curriculum. We've talked about needing to do more for kids in Tier 2 who need more intervention. So we've been busy. We've been busy all summer and in the fall. So specifically to grades K to 6 ELA, and you know a lot of this. In June, we pulled a number of a core group from each elementary building to start working together to write curriculum, common assessments, align all of their materials. We pulled out the standards. They aligned everything. They're teaching. They're meeting again in January, and come next summer, we will pull them together so we can get all of this written and to you to be board approved. K6 math had training in August, and they have training again in January. We learned that the everyday math piece that we are not using appropriately. So that is why we are bringing consultants in for the whole spring. They will be working one-on-one with the teachers to improve the math in grades K to 6. Again, we're hoping by late fall to bring you curriculum. Grades 3 to 6 science, and we're working primarily with grades 3 to 6 because those are where the tested area is. Chuck Benton, we shared with you some of our STEM activities, and it's very important that the activities that are happening in LIBE happen in all of the elementary schools. So we are currently researching more STEM materials, and we're looking at programs. We are working directly with those teachers in December, and we are going to begin writing curriculum and looking at more hands-on science. And again, we'll hopefully have that curriculum to you next fall. 8th grade, now in the intermediate school, 8th grade ELA, we had a number of subs in 7th grade, so we decided to start with 8th grade. Terry has been working very, very hard, working curriculum, common assessments, aligning materials. That growth data I shared with you, that growth data is also available for every single teacher who teaches in a tested area, and they also have colors. So in the last 2 weeks, we have looked at that growth data and identified key teachers who are getting dark blue data and talking to them and asking them what they're doing, and they are right on the money. So we are going to use them, and we are going to do some mentoring with each other. We're going to put some teachers together to improve some processes in the intermediate school. So we're going to pull them to work with some language arts teachers at the intermediate school. And 7th and 8th grade math, Bobby has been working very hard with them. Again, they've been working on their curriculum, and we've been looking at common assessments and also aligning materials. So we've been working very hard with language arts, math, and science, K to 8. The Keystone courses. Jen Shelley this is her mission in life this week, and one of the things we did is we brought in, there is a free state assessment called the CDTs that the Keystone teachers were not using. We brought a training in for all of those teachers, and they are now assessing the students. These CDTs align directly with the Keystones. So teachers are giving the students these Keystones, they're analyzing the data, they are aligning their instruction, they've set goals. And so our goal, we're hoping we will see definitely improvement with the Keystones next month, but even probably more improvement in May. And we, at the high school, all department chairs were trained in the high school curriculum framework, and now the entire high school teaching staff is working on writing curriculum at the high school level. They are aligning themselves backward. They are looking at the end in mind and then putting curriculum together. We're hoping possibly by spring that we might have that curriculum ready to you. All right, specific to the AP courses, there is training each year for AP teachers. So we have found that training, and we are encouraging all AP teachers. AP training is amazing, and AP teachers love it. It's a teaching strategies, and it gives them so many materials. So we are going to encourage them to attend training this summer. And district-wide, what have we done? Our data analysis process has been huge. We introduced NWEA MAP this fall. That's in September. And again, we will assess in January, and we will be able to see how the kids have grown. Teachers are meeting weekly, every 2 weeks, once a month. They're talking about data. They're using data to make decisions in their classroom. They're using data to do interventions. We are using it. We are not making decisions. We are making no decisions without data. We are using the data. We are looking at the growth. They are working in the mornings. They are working on in-service days. They are working. The 3-hour early dismissals have been wonderful, especially at the elementary, where they just don't have enough time to meet together. We have also recommitted to PBIS, which is our positive behavior system. We need to make sure that students' behavior allows them to remain in class. So each building we had our first meeting today with someone from LIU, and we are committing to it and making sure our processes are right, and we are collecting data on that as well. So we're looking at our behavior data. And then finally, Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction, that targets specific skill deficits for students. So we are looking at, for example, the learning support child who is struggling in comprehension. How are we targeting that comprehension, and what are we using? So we are using online materials, we're using different groupings, all kinds of strategies. So we really are focusing on all of this. So that is what we're doing right now. We have been extremely busy. Today we had all kinds of meetings all day. We are meeting, we are talking, we are realigning. Principals, any comments on anything I missed? We're doing, we're busy. Teachers are busy. Yeah, teachers are busy. So any questions about the data?
I think the only thing I have to ask, I know you guys are doing a tremendous job, a lot of work, a lot of effort. And I'm assuming if I understand you correctly, even though you're rewriting the curriculum, taking a look at the curriculum, aligning it, we are still taking a look at what we're doing today in the classroom,
Yes.
and we're making changes in the classroom, better assessing our students, and
Yes.
we're trying to do what we can until we get everything in
Yes,
place.
that's the hard part of it. Okay, I'll take ELA, I'll take elementary ELA. They worked probably 3, 4, 5 days this summer. Kindergarten is the best example. And they aligned things and they had it right. And I said to them, your focus is the first marking period. So work together, figure it out, get it together. I brought them back in October for a day to work again. And I sat down with them and they looked at me and they said, it didn't work. It didn't work. They realigned that day. They felt better. They're going to be back in January. Exactly. They have to get through the day and it has to work. And we're using map data. That's telling us if it's working or not. So we're not just, oh, we think it works because it looks like it's working. No, we're using data to say it is working. That's probably the only grade level. We have the 6th grade. They worked really hard this summer. Both the math and language arts 6th grade teachers, they are doing a great job. They had it down. They came back together in October. They were good. They just kind of cleared up some things and moved on. So every grade level is in a different place because they're different people and they have different understandings of things and they have different types of kids. But yes, they're working to be in the class today and they're documenting everything because we're going to pull them back a lot this summer to say, okay, what worked? What didn't work? What would you do again? What are you going to change? Because when we bring you the curriculum, it's never going to be perfect. We're going to have to adjust it. So one of the things that we need to do is put a curriculum writing process in place that is constantly looking at it, using our data to make sure our curriculum's working. And if we need to bring little tweaks to you, we'll do that. We need to do that. But we need that curriculum to always be updated and improved and works for the kids that we have coming. So yes. So it's hard. It's hard. They have to teach today and they're writing a curriculum. It's a lot of work. It's really hard.
The SPP scores. Been all over the map with this, and you said they might disappear.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the message here is not to get too excited about real high and not to get too disappointed with real low. But I guess I'm curious if other districts are seeing these major swings like in their buildings like this.
No. We are at a deficit without a curriculum. When your data comes out a certain way at the end of the school year, and you have nothing to go back and look at to see what caused that, that's why we have the swings. Honestly, we have the blues you see where we had growth in all those good scores are because we have just some teachers who get it. We don't have a curriculum. We don't have a curriculum to go back and say, yeah, let's look at our data and see where we're weak and fix that area. We don't have that. So other districts are not seeing that because they have a curriculum. So we need a good year to get that curriculum written, and then we can look at it. But you're exactly right. It is really hard when you don't have a curriculum. Really hard. And on the positive front with Journeys and everyday math, what that brings to the table is grade level material. So I want you to think about that a minute. Before Journeys, teachers didn't even have a piece of material that they could say, this is 3rd grade. This we know matches the 3rd grade standards in the state of Pennsylvania. They didn't have that. So they were pulling things that they thought might be or might not or whatever it was. Now they know they have the material that is that grade level. And these materials now are aligned to all the pieces that the PSSA assesses. But you still have to it has to be put together with a curriculum. A curriculum still has to guide that. So no, without a curriculum, it's really hard. It's really hard. And I've got to tell you, just in our efforts this year, we are going to see amazing improvement. I'm convinced. I'm convinced this summer we're going to see amazing improvement. You get that once. You get that once. And I'm convinced we are going to.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, moving on, we've come to our first public comment section. Anybody has anything to say for items on or off the agenda, please come forward. I'm seeing nobody moving. All right, we're going to move on to board Vice President Communications. We had no executive sessions tonight, and none scheduled. Moving on to comprehensive planning and curriculum development. All right, thank you. Okay. All right. Our first item that we did was just the data presentation that you just saw. So I will not waste any more time on that. The next we talked about at length was the 2018-2019 district school calendar. There is currently on the 4th draft of the calendar, so a lot of changes have been made. There was a survey that was given to staff, and the calendar was designed based upon staff feedback and requests. There were 4 specific requests.
4 specific requests.
From the staff, and that was to
To
not have a full week, first full week
in-service.
of in-service, have,
not have a full first week of kids.
right,
Build in snow days.
build in snow days and out before Memorial Day.
Yes.
They were able to accomplish that.
3 of 4.
Three of
3
4, so I think that's
Couldn't do
pretty
Memorial
good.
Day. Just couldn't get it done.
So August 16th, it will be a district-wide kickoff day for teachers, their first day back, as it'll be in the morning, and then in the afternoon we'll have building level meetings in the afternoon. We are asking that if any board members can make that first morning, that we be there, kind of have as a celebration, welcoming back to teachers. So if anybody can make it that day, that would be awesome, at least for in the morning. August 17th then will be the professional development day. Monday, August 20th is their contracted clerical day. And then August 21st will be a transition day. So those were students in kindergarten, 7th grade, 9th grade, and any other new students into the district will come in. I think we've done that in the past
It has
couple
been
of
done in the
years.
past, yeah.
And have those students a chance to get oriented to the school buildings. And then August 22nd will be the first full day of school for students. Professional development days are built into the calendar throughout the year. This coming school year, we're going to start a district-wide parent conferences, and they're going to be built into the calendar for all K-12 students. That's in October. The high school and intermediate school will work toward a student-led conferences instead of teacher-led. And then during that event for the conferences, there's going to be building level planning of booths, activities, those type of things to help to bring the families into the conferences. And then there are also three out early dismissal days proposed for the end of the school year. There we go. And I think that's pretty much it on that. And then the other two, we just had 2 policies that were coming up. One was an attendance policy, and that was a PSBA policy, which was adjusted to align with a new law. And then the second one was withdrawing from school, and PSBA, again, a PSBA policy revised to reflect other educational options. And I believe that was it, right, for us. So, Mrs. Herman, Mrs. Maley, anything that you want to add to that? Going back to the school calendar, that is going to go out to staff as a draft for their look over and to make sure that they have any questions. And if they do, they can go ahead and email Mrs. Kroom on that. And then the idea is January, we will approve that calendar. Questions, comments, concerns? If not, all right. With that, we'll move on to facilities. Mr. Aming and Mr. Rawhauser.
All right, we went over a couple items. We talked about the D10 list. As of right now, the cameras can be viewed on laptops in the district. The hot water heater that was on the D10 list was not replaced because there was a main boiler that had to be rebuilt due to an unexpected leak. And the bucket truck, more conversation is going to happen on Friday about that. As far as the proposed building project, Mr. Nelson says there are lots of meetings and more to come. He has 3 meetings on Monday, and there will be a food service meeting on Tuesday, and then I guess the next major meeting will be on December 4th, and December 7th and 8th, they were going to meet with all the departments. And the last thing we talked about was Policy 707. This was last not updated since May of 2011. There is one major concern that Mr. Nelson has with this policy that is not included, and that is an organizer. WellSpan is an organizer of an event called Double Creek, which is held in June. And the concern he has is that they bring prison inmates with a guard to help with this event, and that's not in the policy. So we are currently going to go over Policy 707, and also we're going to be updating certain added features for the proposed building as well. So, but his concern, and for that concern as the prison inmates, the board needs to make a decision on this before June, because that's when the next event for WellSpan is being held. So, Mr. Rawhauser, anything I missed?
Well, the only thing we talked about is we're waiting to see how the prospective buyer at Crawltown is making out. And we have a number of facility issues coming up. We're saving them for next year to work on to straighten some things out. That's all I got.
Questions or comments for Mr. Amick or Mr. Rawhauser?
Yeah, explain that 707 again. What does it have to do with us?
The policy is the facilities usage
It's,
policy.
the use of school facilities. And we have to go over this because it wasn't revised since 2011, so that was 7 years ago.
Is that for the run they do in June?
No, that's for the use of all facilities in the school district.
Oh.
It's a whole policy.
I'm sorry,
on-
I misunderstood.
This
Okay.
includes prices, charges. It's just a policy that needs to be updated. And once that is done, we'll bring that forward to the next step in that, but that's going to take a couple meetings to go over Policy 707.
Any other questions? Right, moving along to Human and Fiscal Resources, Mr. Cook.
Safe and Supportive Schools also joined us tonight, so we combined because Mr. Deschaux is not here tonight. So we talked about a number of things here. We talked a little bit about the SRO contract, which we've had the presentation tonight. That contract will be coming to the full board for approval in January. It'll be a 2-year contract, once again moving forward. We also talked about the food service policy 808. Right now, there is some changes that are going to be taking place with that. We talked a little bit the other night about shaming and the requirement to be provided a meal, which our current policy does not accurately address according to the state law changes. So that policy will be reviewed in the policy committee, and we'll be bringing that back to the full board then once that process takes place. Tuesday evening, we had pulled policy 347, which is in regards to workers' compensation. Pulled that off of our agenda for approval. We took a look at that and had a discussion in our committee tonight about that policy. Had some questions answered there. Ben was also sought on the wording of the policy and endorsed our policy as it stands. It is a necessary requirement for us to have a policy like that in place. So that's going to also be going back to the policy committee, and look for that to come our way again, probably in January for approval. We also talked a little bit about having Safe and Supportive committee there as well, and talking about a building project. Asked Rich Leathery for his opinion on possible new fields that may be part of our construction plans. Sought his input on turf versus grass, what kind of concerns he may have regarding that. Rich says that the statistics show that there are no more injuries, even less injuries on turf fields than what there is on grass and dirt as far as knee injuries are concerned. Obviously, his preference would be a turf field if we could swing that, a second field. We do have a lot of activities on our current field, which, stress that out as well. So it's just something to keep in mind. His thoughts also were that if we did put in another turf field, it would probably want to be a gated field just for safety or just for protection's sake, that nobody could drive on it. So these are in discussion as part of the building project, but from a safety standpoint, and being as we had some time to talk about it tonight, that's why we brought that subject up. Not that any decisions are made or any plans are implemented, it's just conversation. So I think that's, Jen, is there anything I might have missed or? Okay. That's it.
Any questions for Mr. Cook? Okay, seeing none. Move on to miscellaneous. Any comments or observations from any board members? Mr. Rawhauser? Any comments? No? Okay. Anybody else have any comments this evening? None? Okay. This brings us to our second public comment session. Again, anybody has any items, any comments on items on or off the agenda? Please come forward. Seeing none. Okay. Future meeting announcements. Future meeting now, there you go. Our board reorganization meeting will take place on Tuesday, December 5th at 7 o'clock in the administration complex. That's all I have. And with that, have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
That was a first, a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned.